What's up, y'all? Second recording of the day, and what I want to speak on is something very interesting and something that I don't know if any of y'all may or may not agree with this. I've never heard it put this way before. What I'm about to speak on, and it's this idea of God, how do I put it? It's this idea of men chasing women, like the stereotype of, let's just say for simplicity's sake, like the college jock or the college frat house chasing women, right? It's you got that picture in your head. Everybody should know what that is, and it's like a trope, right? The stereotype. It's like a big old stereotype that men like to chase women and all that. And that comes from our media, by the way. And it was put in our media on purpose through these movies. You know, movies like Animal House, those old 80s, 90s movies. But it goes all the way back to these old ideas from the 1950s, 1960s. And it seems all the degeneracy starts... the degeneracy was before that, right? But it seems to start a lot with the boomer gen and the hippie movement, and they learned it from their parents. So I'm not letting Silent Gen or GI generation off the hook. The World War II, World War I vets are to blame as well, because they spoiled the boomer gen to the point where they don't even know how to act. They weren't disciplined. They didn't have that old world. They didn't have that old world, early 1900s discipline. They didn't have necessity. That's the problem with the boomer gen. They never had absolute necessity. The worst they had was like the Gulf War in Vietnam. And they like to, not all, right? But for the most part, the boomer generation loves to talk about the Vietnam War. But this idea of men chasing women, right? There's this idea that men can kind of just go around and screw every woman they want their whole life, but expect to marry a virgin. You know, that old trope. It's like cheesy by this point, right? A lot of y'all cringing, like, it's stupid, like it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, me, personally. So you have this idea, and a lot of Christians think this way too, where it's like the Christian men think they can kind of move in on women and kind of do whatever they want with women. Like, they think they ruled over women. Not all, right? But that old school thinking of Christian, that a lot of Christian men had, where it was like they have to dominate their wives or they have to dominate their daughters. And you can't do it that way. It's either in you naturally or it isn't in you at all. But to me, the skirt chaser kind of thing, these teenagers who chase women, this old idea, is kind of the same thing, in my opinion. It's perfectly in line with this old school Christian mentality of dominating over women. And a lot of you think that I'm like this, that I have these ideals, that I'm trying to like propagate these ideals, which I don't. Like, I don't think that at all. I don't believe that at all. To me, it's either in the woman to follow her husband or it's not. It's either in the man to lead his family or it's not. And I'm trying to help y'all get there. And it's none of my business, right? You either take my advice or you don't. It don't bother me either way. I'm perfectly happy if you don't follow my advice about what it takes to be a man, what it takes to be a good wife, what it takes to be a good mother. Because, like I said, it's either in you or it isn't. You either see it or you don't see it. Because if you don't see it and you try to fake it, it's not going to work. Any of you women out there who pretend to sympathize for men, who pretend that you want to be mothers, like you pretend to be this pro masculine thing, and I know you're out there because I've seen it before. If you're pretending, if it's not really in you to think this way, then it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out with your boyfriend. It's not going to work out with your husband. Okay? It just isn't. Period. It has to be within you. It has to be within you already. And I say this all the time, where it's like, you have to, the only true way to do this is through forgiveness for the trauma that your parents caused you. And it's so cheesy by this point to just say this, but a lot of y'all aren't doing it. And I know you're not doing it, because just to talk about myself for a little bit, I didn't do it. And I was listening to Jesse Lee Peterson for over 4 years. I heard so many testimonies of people forgiving their mothers, forgiving their fathers, and I never did it. I kept going, no, I don't need to do that. I forgave her in my heart, which is not, that's not a thing, dude. This forgiveness in your heart shit is not a thing. It's not. It's so funny when I hear it from people in Jesse's radio show, because it's like you're playing pretend. It's like you're in Disney World. You're in a fantasy land in your own mind where, oh, I forgave my mother. I forgave my mother in my heart. It's like, no, you didn't, man. Like, you're living in a fantasy world. Like, you're frolicking through the forest with the talking animals thinking you forgave your mama. You didn't do it, okay? You need to approach your mother. You need to approach your father. You need to ask your mother. You need to approach your mother and say, I forgive you for doing all these terrible things to me. It's not in my place. I was out of line being angry at you. I had no right to be angry at you, because I realized that you went through the same thing that I'm going through, and you're just as crazy as your mother. And then you go to your dad, you go to your father if you can, and you say, hey dad, what was the deal with you and mom? How come you didn't protect me from mother? And then he'll get into it about, if he's honest, he'll get into about how she was crazy and that he was a weak male. Okay? If he's honest, and men tend to do this, fathers tend to do this way more than mothers do. Okay? If you do this the correct way, you will see what I'm talking about. And you're not going to get it from me just talking about it. Like, you're not. Like, y'all may get things on the surface level when I say, let's say, okay, this is a good example. If I say, for instance, that when women don't want to work and they're miserable working and they just want to be housewives, you probably understand that physically, at a physical level, on an emotional level, you get that 100% as a female. You don't want to work. You want to stay home with the kids or stay home and be a housewife, because that's what you're built for. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that at all. Okay, don't ever let the world try to shame you out of that, because you got a lot of crazy feminists right now. When they hear that, they go, "Oh my God, she's being abused! Oh, it's an abusive husband!" Blah, blah, blah. They go crazy. Okay, but even then, you only understand that on a surface level because you haven't gone and forgave your mother or forgave your father. You still have that anger in you. You still have that darkness in you. This goes for the males too. If you haven't approached your mom or approached your dad, you don't understand. You don't. Like, period. You're not going to understand. It's impossible. So, to get back to the relationship thing. We've got a lot of crazy females right now. And I guarantee it, they're emulating the men, because men are leaders. Women see the men act crazy, so they themselves are going to act crazy. And they're emulating what the men did back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Sleeping around, partying, all that shit you see in the media. And it's all from the media. We're still operating on that 1950s and 60s, 70s, all the way through the 90s media that we were fed, the propaganda that we were fed of how people are supposed to act, how people are supposed to love and be romantic. All of it's a farce. All of it's a lie. That's not how love works. That's not how relationships are supposed to work. That's not how any of it is supposed to work. It only operates through God, not the physical. It either operates through the husband, God's love through the husband, to the wife, to the children. It either operates that way or it doesn't operate at all. 100%, and that's absolutely the bottom line. And I know I'm being very, I'm saying it so matter of fact. I'm so confident because I am so confident. Because I see it over and over again. I said it in a previous recording that none of y'all have a unique story to tell. None of you. Every single one of you is repeating some mythos, some story from the book, the Bible. It's all in the Bible. Your whole life is the Bible, is playing out in the Bible. There's nothing new under the sun. In a damn one of you got a unique story. You walk around thinking your story is so unique and that you got this epic story to tell. You really don't. I've heard all this before. It's the same shit being repeated over and over again. That should be your clue. That is your clue. That's your first clue that something's not right. Anyway, guys, we'll keep working on it. I'll keep talking my nonsense, and you can keep dismissing me. That's fine. But no hard feelings. Just leave a comment and let me know what you think. Don't be shy in the comments. Have a nice day. All right. Wanted to talk about something I've been meaning to talk about for a little while and got around to it. So, I don't think I've brought this up on my channel. I may have, or I may have alluded to this idea of how, the mainstream narrative of how relationships are supposed to work, how religion is supposed to work, how love is, what love is, quote unquote, and the way we kind of, the way men and women interact with one another when it comes to dating and relationships and all that. And that comes from this old idea from the 1950s, 1960s about how men and women should act and how men and women should be, getting involved romantically, dating, gifts, consumerism, and it all involves, the men chasing the women. So men are always pursuing women. So that old idea, 1950s idea of, and it's really all about consumerism, but to me, it's a little more sinister than that. The consumerism is just kind of like a byproduct of the wickedness and evil of it. And a lot of y'all are going to be thinking, like, what do you mean by wickedness and evil? Like, it's romance. It's romance, right? It's love. It's romance. It's kissing and hugging and all that. Men are supposed to chase women. Like, that's what a lot of y'all think, and you're not correct at all. Men are not designed to do that. Men are builders. Men are creators. And the women, I've talked about the order of God. God over man, man over woman, women over children. And like I said, it's not a subservient hierarchy. If you view it as, let's say you're a woman, for instance, and you view this hierarchy as abuse, or if you view it as men just trying to dominate over women, and it's been used in that way before, which isn't the proper order of God. But here's the thing about it. People like to use the example of men dominating over women through religious means, right? It's like, oh, I'm the man, you're gonna do what I say because that's God's order. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like I've said in past videos, it's either in you or it isn't. It's either in the man to lead his family, and it's either in the woman to follow the man and raise the children properly, or it's not at all. And if it's not there, it's not there. You can't force it. You can't do this artificially. And this is where a lot of the problems are stemming from, because a lot of men out there, and women are guilty of this too, a lot of men out there are attempting to kind of coerce women into obeying. And that's not the proper order. That's the devil's work. So, like I said, so we have an upside down cross in a big way. And women can't fake it either. It's either in them to be loving wives and obedient wives and raise the children. When I say obey, I don't literally mean like, oh yes, master, your wish is my command, because that's what a lot of people think. And I think a lot, and like I said, the media, it's what the media has portrayed for the past almost 100 years by this point. And it's that ideology that's being kind of passed on and been brainwashing people, and mainly females. I Dream of Jeannie was a big one. You know what's funny though? I got into a discussion about I Dream of Jeannie once, and I grew up on I Dream of Jeannie, so you can't bullshit me with I Dream of Jeannie because I know how the show goes. So my wife and I were talking about I Dream of Jeannie one day, and she thought it was, I guess she was trying to make a cheeky point about how, the girl who, Jeannie had to call Anthony master and all that, which she didn't have to, by the way. It was her decision. She was the subservient. She was the genie, right? The genie in the bottle. So it was already within her to call Tony master and all that. His name was Tony. I think his name was Anthony, the main character. He was an astronaut. He worked for NASA. So it was within her already, the genie, to call Anthony her master. And she was very powerful, by the way. So I want you to put that in perspective, that the genie was the powerful being calling the man the master. And my wife was kind of bringing this up, like, that old 1960s idea that women are supposed to be subservient to men. And I pointed out to her, I was like, have you even watched an episode? Because Anthony, the main character, was never comfortable with this word master ever. He never expected Jeannie to obey him. He never wanted Jeannie to obey him. And that was kind of where the comedy came from in the show. See, I'm still recording. Yep. So in the show, Anthony didn't like Jeannie calling him master. And that was kind of where the comedy came from, because it made him really uncomfortable. He didn't like it, and I pointed that out to her. And after that, she kind of dropped the subject because she knew she was wrong about the show, that she never watched, by the way. I was like, I watched the show. I know how the show went, and it's just a completely false idea that you have of how the show operated. Like, and that's where a lot of these ideas come from, where it's like, but this idea still came from a show like that. I think Bewitched was another one. There was another powerful female kind of married to like a guy, just a regular dude. But I don't remember much about Bewitched. I don't remember really liking Bewitched. So I never really got attached to Bewitched. It's like, whatever. It wasn't entertaining to me. So I don't remember much about Bewitched. I just know that she was kind of a housewife who just happened to be a witch, and she was powerful and all that, and she would make things happen. She would twitch her nose or whatever that silly shit was. But to get back to this, to get back to the thing about men chasing women, or guys, let's just say boys, guys, young men chasing women, chasing girls, and dating girls and pursuing girls. And the old cheesy black and white show would be like, hey, why don't you take her to the malt shop, Take her to the malt shop, I'll give you $quarter and y'all can share a malt, or whatever. It's really stupid, right? But that's what they were teaching the boys back then, to kind of court the woman and chase the woman and chase the women. So let's say that was the 50s, right? Let's flash forward a little bit, maybe a decade or two, where now you have guys who think they're owed sex, essentially, where it's like they're dating women, they're just dating women just to get loose with them and have sex with them and whatnot. So you have these guys acting very promiscuous, kind of sleeping with whoever they want. And you have this idea in the public subconscious where, and this all came about in the media, by the way. The movies would portray this. So the teenagers and young adults are obviously going to start acting like this. So now you got a whole bunch of men chasing women, getting loose with women, but at the same time expecting chastity from the women. Like they're sleeping with all these women, but at the same time looking for that one virgin, right? That old cheesy kind of thing where it's like, I've heard this before too. I hear it all the time. Not all the time, but I've heard it before, where it's like, oh, the man can go out and sleep whoever they want, but when it comes to the woman, she has to stay a virgin, which doesn't make sense, right? Obviously, it doesn't make sense. It's cognitive dissonance. It's a very clear case of that. And it's not right either. It doesn't make it right. And a lot of religious institutions push this as well, where it's like, oh, the man oh, the boys will be boys, men make mistakes. It's like, no, you're not teaching your boys how to act properly, about chasing women and following the woman, right? Going into the woman's world in order to get in her pants. And you see a lot of this. It's flash forward, okay, to current day, where you're seeing a lot of grown men going into the female's world, going into her world, instead of the woman pursuing the man and getting into his world and getting into his family and starting a new family. Breaking the chains, right? Turning your blood into wine. That's what that allegory means. Where you're a man, you're a free agent. Like, men are free agents. And women nowadays are too, right? Because that's just the way the world works now, okay? So, men and women are free agents, but I'm putting emphasis on the guys here. Men are free agents, and that's not the green light to go out and sleep around, all right? To me, my personal ideology, my personal belief, which is based on Christianity, sorry guys, if you're an atheist, that's just what my beliefs are based on. And it's a natural order, it's a natural ideology. Because I'm not going off the book, quote unquote. There's ideas in the book that are really good, that I appreciate, but I'm not so hard up on the book that I'm going to quote you the Bible and, turn the page to this verse and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you that the modern parents are both very feminized. So you got two women, two adults with that very feminine energy raising our boys. So now all the boys are being raised to be these kind of, they're not being raised to have these more masculine traits. And I don't mean masculine as Macho Man or Popeye the Sailor Man or, John Rambo. I'm not talking about that kind of masculinity. I'm talking about the man who receives his orders from God and that's the best way I can put it, because I have to speak in metaphors, right? I can't just, the language is limited. I have to speak in metaphors. I have to speak in allegories and parables, because that's the only way to get people to understand. So we have a situation where the boys aren't being taught right because the fathers are weak. So you have weak fathers raising weak boys. Not only that, getting back to this 1960s and 70s thing where the men are acting loose, quote unquote. The men are sleeping around. Now you have, let's say, so you have the girls witnessing what the boys do, and then you're going to have jealousy and envy from the girls, from even the adults. The adult women are watching the adult men act in this fashion, and the order is completely messed up, right? Because the guys aren't acting right, and the women are natural followers. The women are natural followers, so they're going to start acting like the guys do. All right? Does that make sense? All right, I had to pause for a minute. Like I was saying, so to get back to the order. So like I've said before, and I'm talking metaphysically, I'm kind of speaking on the mythology of how men and women are built. Regardless of ideology, regardless of upbringing, this is how men and women work, where the men are natural leaders and the women are natural followers. And like I said, followers doesn't mean subservient or lower than or underclass or anything like that, because that's what the religious institutions try to implement on the females. And they try to do it through violence, which isn't how you do it. You don't do it in any way. So, and then that's what's in our media. That's the way the media tries to portray religion and men, because you have a lot of older media out there that tries to subjugate women. And that was the trick, because that's what it was showing the world at the time. an attempt to demonize men and to demonize the masculine, to get women to stop following men. So going off of that, we have nearly 60 years, 70 years of that sort of brainwashing going on in the media for men and women, where on one hand you have the media saying it's okay for men to sleep around, it's okay for men to cheat on their wives, and on the other hand you have the media telling boys that it's okay to beat your wives, it's okay to cheat on your wives, and it's okay to subjugate your wife. And then the religious institutions came along and said the same thing, where it's like, oh, you're absolved of all your sins, even if you cheat on your wife, blah, blah, blah. And sins aren't a real thing, okay? It isn't about getting permission from a priest to not think about sin anymore. I'll get into that another day. I'm not going to focus on that in this video, but so you have nearly a decade or nearly a century. So you have nearly a century of this propaganda. And now we have the modern situation where it seems that females are the ones that are out of control. And that's because they've been emulating what the men have done the past century or so. And it's all on purpose. Like all of it is on purpose. People are easily tricked and swayed and manipulated into doing what the controllers want. And the controllers, quote unquote, want men and women both out of control. They want women out of control so they can control the men, because you don't want the men to receive God's light. And the light's within all people, but it especially comes through the men. All right? So these old TV shows, so that godly spirit needs to be passed down to the sons so it can be properly passed down to the daughters and to the wives. And this really really boils it down to any men out there who are listening, single men, and you're out there chasing women still, right? You're looking for a wife, looking for a girlfriend, you're bringing her flowers, and y'all need to stop doing that, okay? It's gonna seem like weird advice, but you need to stop chasing women. You need to stop giving women so much attention and focus on yourselves. And I'm not one of these like weird red-pilled assholes, okay? Because I've seen the guys on these channels, and they're just as pathetic as the the beta male incel black pill dudes who kind of blame women for everything, and they think they're owed sex, right? And they blame women for all their problems, and they go around calling themselves manlets, they go around calling themselves sub-5s, and I've seen it all, man. And maybe I'll get into this a little bit, because I think these dudes, these black-pilled little beta boys, that's what I like to call them, they're black-pilled beta boys, and they're pathetic. They're really, really pathetic, because the way they victimize themselves and the way they play victim, they're just as bad as like the boomer generation, in a sense where the boomers kind of blame, the boomers got everything, okay? When it comes political clout and, Social Security, which is a really big deal, y'all. Y'all don't realize how big of a deal Social Security is in the United States, to the point where Gen X and millennials won't be getting, like, we're not getting it. We're not getting Social Security. It's going to be gone by the time, especially by the time I'm at retirement age. Like, we're not getting Social Security. Social Security was an absolute hustle to get more money. It was a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme, whatever. It was a scheme. Like, Social Security was a complete farce from day one, and the boomers fell for it hook, line, and sinker because they're just that gullible and stupid. But these black-pilled beta boys are just like the boomers in the sense where they just kind of blame everyone but themselves for their problems. And this is the thing about them. I don't disagree with what they're saying. I disagree with the spirit behind it. I disagree with the spirit behind it. Me personally, I don't blame women for anything. Any faults that I have are of my own. If anything, I blame my parents. but at the same time forgive them and realize that they did their best, etc. I've talked about forgiveness on my channel so many times. You already know how that goes. But the thing is about these black-pilled beta boys is that they don't learn their lesson. Because they have an audience, they have to kind of massage and gear their channel towards. And they have a hustle going in a sense to where they're getting attention for saying all these things. And this is where the problem kind of stems from. And you have it on the opposite end, where I call them the red-pilled boys or the red-pilled men, who the MGTOW group, the men go in their own way group, who kind of abstain and they just stay away from women. But they, at the same time, they kind of trash talk women a whole lot. Y'all may think I'm a MGTOW kind of person, and I'm not. Like, I don't like these red-pilled dudes either, because I think they're just as sad and pathetic as these sad little black-pilled boys. So, you have the red-pilled and the black-pilled, right? What was I getting to? So you guys out there, the single men that are listening, like don't be either of these dudes. Like if you're single and you're looking for a woman, stop. Just stop. Especially if you're a young man, if you're like in your 20s or maybe even your 30s, like you still have time, quote unquote. Time's an illusion anyway, right? So you just need to stop with the skirt chasing and just build and just be yourself, like build your own spirit. You know, connect to God. Forgive your parents is the big one, because once you forgive your parents, once you confront your mother, and confronting your mother is the biggest one. Once you confront your mom about the terrible shit she did and apologize to her for judging her, you'll be free. And you'll see everything that I see. Because what I'm saying isn't magic. Like the things that I say and the things that I witness and the stuff that I observe is not some kind of weird magic, or I don't have special goggles that I put on every morning. It's just all through forgiveness. I see these things now, and it's like I can't. It's like I said, the permanent they live glasses that I cannot take off. And once you forgive your mother, especially your mother, but once you forgive your parents, you're gonna have these glasses on permanently, and you can't take them off. Like nightmare goggles. It's like, oh, let me put on these nightmare goggles. Wow, everything looks the same. It feels like that. Like I put on the nightmare goggles and everything looks the same. That stupid meme. But anyway, so guys, I don't know what to say. Like start your own businesses or something. Like work on yourselves. Get into philosophy. It doesn't necessarily have to be this religious gobbledygook. You don't have to pick up the Bible. And the reason I want you to maybe get into philosophy is because it's going to force you to introspect. It's going to force you to go within. You need to slow down. Stop thinking about the family you might want to have, or stop thinking about the girl you might want to be with. Stop thinking about these things and start focusing on that inner light. This goes for females too. Like if you're out there looking for a husband and you want a family of 6 kids, like stop chasing that dream. Stop it and search your inner light, because when you start searching for that inner light, you're gonna start showing it on the outside, and others are gonna take notice. This is what I mean by these guys. You need to stop chasing women, because once you get your mind straight, once you get your spirit straight, once you go forgive your parents, it's gonna reflect on the outside, and people are gonna take notice, and they're gonna start gravitating towards you, and that's when the perfect woman or the perfect girl is going to step into your life and start a new blood family, start a new generation. And that's when you break the curse. And that's what breaking the curse means. That's what it means, turning your blood into wine. And a lot of y'all are going to take that very seriously, because you think it's all mystical mumbo jumbo. And I've said in a previous recording that you're all living the same story. Like none of y'all have a unique story to tell that I haven't heard before. And I'm only 40. I hadn't heard a lot of stories, and so far all the stories have been the same. Okay? I really don't care where you're from. You're really repeating every single story that every other person has done in the world. I don't care what country you're from. I don't care what language you speak. The reason I talk about the language thing sometimes is because I've watched Japanese and Korean dramas, and they're going through the same bullshit. And yeah, it's dramatized, it's exaggerated reality, but the mythology is still there. The writers and the directors and these actors cannot get away from the mythology. They can't get away from the dynamic of the blood family. They can't get away from the dynamic of the Jesus Christ story. They can't get away from the dynamic of the Noah's Ark story or Adam and Eve. They can't get away. They're repeating the same story. They're telling the same story. It's just the sprinkles are different. You know, this donut's got sprinkles, and this donut's got chocolate frosting. This donut's got vanilla. It's the same donut, man. Open your eyes, guys. Go and forgive your parents. Go and forgive your parents, because you're going to see it the way I see it. You're going to realize that everyone's got the same stupid story to tell. Ladies, talking to the ladies, quit looking for a man. Quit having these fantasies about how you're going to have a big family and how you're going to have the perfect man and all that. Quit it. Stop it. Men, quit thinking about sex. Quit fantasizing about you're the perfect woman. Quit fantasizing about it, because you're, how do I put this? Like you're, ooh, man, it's kind of hard to put into words what I want to say, but your mental image of what the okay, let's put it this way. Your mental image of perfection does not match reality in the slightest, because you have no idea, zero clue, nothing. You have no clue what perfection is. You don't know what the ideal wife is. You don't know what the ideal family is. You have no clue, none. It's all in the imagination, all of it. And this is why you need to let go of these imaginations, these creatures in your mind that you've created, your tulpas, your imaginary friends in your mind. You need to let it go. Get them into a bus accident. Put them on a bus and kill them. Anyway, guys, I think that's all I have to say about this. If I have something to add, I'll add it later, as I always do. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.